Hi everybody, it's Kari at the Racine Heritage Museum, and today I'm here with my daughter Kylie. She is a museum assistant here and she's been here for about a year. And we are going to talk about the fact that there was, did you know Kylie, there was a POW camp in Sturtevant during World War II.
I did not know that.
Yes.
So where was it?
Well, the camp was in Sturtevant. It was on 4 acres on the corner of the northwest corner of Highway 11 and 90th Street. And basically it was 50 tents with wood floors. And it started in 1944 on June 16th when 250 soldiers came here to the POW camp. And then 100 more came in July of that year.
So why was it made?
Well, it was made because during World War II, there was a labor shortage. So a lot of the men were overseas fighting in the war. And so they didn't have people to work in the fields, to work in the factories. And so different places could apply to have POWs sent here to help with the harvest and with factory work.
So what type of people were in the camps?
Well, so they were prisoners of war. So what it meant was they were captured on the battlefield. So they didn't know it at the time, but the prisoners of war that came here to Sturtevant were actually from the Afrika Korps, Rommel's elite troops. And they didn't tell the people here where they were from. They tried to keep that secret. They were captured on the battlefront and transferred to Fort Sheridan, and then they made their way here after that.
So what was life like for them?
Well, the main thing was they were not supposed to be pampered, but they were also not supposed to be mistreated. And so the Geneva Convention has rules about how prisoners of war can be treated. I can tell you when they first showed up, the very first night that they were here, there was a tornado and it knocked down all the tents, and so they basically had to rebuild their own camp. But the farmers who wanted to help have them used in the harvest, they had to pay the government $5 a day. And then the government actually paid the prisoners of war 80 cents a day. Now they didn't get cash, what they got was a coupon. And they could use that coupon in their camp. They had a little store in the camp and they could buy personal items like cigarettes, shaving lotion, things like that. And so they used the coupons to buy their own items. They could buy postcards. They had a limit they could send 1 postcard per day or 1 letter per day. And they even limited, they could only have 17 words on a postcard and 45 words on a letter. So they did have rules. They had assigned duties. So some of the prisoners would go out to the fields or the industries and work. Some of the prisoners would stay behind and they would run the camp. So for example, they had an infirmary in case somebody got sick. They had a barber shop for people to get haircuts. They had a chapel, a mess hall where they had their food. They had a post office. So another thing with the 80 cents that they received, they had to use that to pay for their haircuts, for their food, etc. And so they kind of wanted them to experience democracy. So they set this up for them to experience that. They had to get up early in the morning. Breakfast began at 6 a.m. and then their project started at 7:30. And they wore denim pants and a shirt with a huge PW on the back, so everybody knew what they were there for. They would come back at 6 p.m. and have dinner, and then they did have free time in the evening. They could play soccer, volleyball, they could sing, sometimes they would have plays. And they also were able to take courses through the UW extension. And so they treated them well, but it was kind of a fine line. So they also were not allowed to take newspaper photos of them unless they consented, and they were not allowed to interview them. And they were not supposed to have any interaction with civilians other than the farmers that they were working for, but we will talk about there was a little bit of that happened.
But
so
people were generally pretty nice to them, right?
For the most part, people were nice to them. One thing that was kind of funny was a lot of the people, so in 1940, 1/3 of the population in Wisconsin was German. And so some of the people actually spoke German. And so there was a lot of curiosity in Sturtevant about these prisoners. So people were showing up in their cars and wanting to drive by and look through the fence. And so they actually had to have police come and direct traffic to keep people away from the prison camp, because another part of the Geneva Convention is that you can't make a spectacle of these people. And so they kind of tried to keep people away. Now, some of the farmers were actually pretty sympathetic towards them, and it was found out later that they would take them swimming after work to the quarry. One farmer had a brother who owned a bar, and he took them there and bought them each a beer and let them play the jukebox. So they kind of weren't supposed to do that. One army official said that the reason we were using these prisoners is not that we liked them, but that we felt that they should help out, seeing as their country started the war and they needed to help us fight it. So that was sort of the thought at the time. But yeah, some of the people here in Wisconsin spoke German, but they were actually discouraged from conversing with the prisoners at that time.
So when did all this end?
Well, December 1st, 1945, that was after the war was over, and the last prisoners began their journey back towards home. When the prisoners were leaving in 1945, they really had mixed feelings. They were happy to be free and they were excited to go back to their country, but they were a little nervous about going back to their country because they didn't know what they were going to find. They didn't know if their family members were living. They didn't know if their home would be standing. They didn't know what the situation would be like in Germany. And here in America, even though they were in a prisoner of war camp, they were still getting 3 meals a day. In fact, in the beginning, some of the Germans were complaining they were getting fed too much at breakfast. Unfortunately for them, when they went back to Germany, there was a famine, there was poverty, so they actually had it better in some cases here in the prisoner of war camp than they did when they went back home. So I mentioned that there wasn't supposed to be any interaction with civilians, but sometimes there was. And all the accounts that I read talked about sometimes there was a little bit of flirting with the prisoners and some American girls that they saw. And whether there was a language barrier or not, sometimes maybe there was, but we have this super cool artifact. We just got this last year, and this came from a man by the name of Guy Williams, and his mother, her name was Dorothy LeJeune Clark. Her married name was Williams, and she was 14 during World War II, and one of the POWs fell in love with her and really liked her and was flirting with her. We don't know if she could speak any German, but this prisoner, in an attempt to win her over, gave her the only thing that he had, the only gift that he was able to give her, and it is a postage stamp. And I will include a picture at the end of the video, but this is a postage stamp with Adolf Hitler's picture on it. And this would be from 1944 to 1945. And so it's pretty amazing that she was able to not only get this stamp, but keep it. It's in really awesome condition. And so it's pretty old, and it is one of the only artifacts that we do have from the prisoner of war camp that they had in Sturtevant. So we hope that you learned a lot today, and I know Kylie likes working here because she always learns a lot. So thanks for watching us. Make sure you like and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And we look forward to seeing you in the museum. If you come in, you might see Kylie. She's often at the front desk. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye.